Oh, I can't breathe. I can't breathe in this thing. Just play the compilation. So, Arc Raiders, it is the brand new extraction shooter made by Embark Studios, and it has taken players by storm. Extraction shooters are not as popular as the Battle Royale world was about 5 years ago, but it is the new big thing, and with the exception of Tarkov and Hunt, not many have found footing in the general gaming market. Now, Arc Raiders appears to be changing that, with a current 24-hour peak of 280,000 players on Steam alone, and an all-time peak of almost 500,000, and finding itself in a large amount of audiences that normally don't cross-pollinate with the extraction shooter genre. Originally, I wasn't going to review Arc Raiders because I am one of those who didn't see the extraction shooter genre as something I'd be interested in, and I also just didn't want to download Tarkov. Something about it, I don't know, it frightened me. Arc Raiders has not frightened me, or at least not from playing the game. It has certainly scared me at times. Oh my god. There's a lot to talk about this game, and it isn't all gameplay and visuals. So let's pop out a flavored toothpick to lock in and get all Speranza Bonanza today. Speaking of which, this is a flavored toothpick. Mint, in fact. And it's from a company called Natura Pine. I am actually the co-owner of Natura Pine, and I cannot stress this enough. In this year, the sheer volume of things going on at once is so overstimulating. People used to think that fidgets and oral fixations were only for people with autism or ADHD, but those days are long past. This little flavored piece of wood was my Squidward with the Krabby Patty moment. I have been tossing these out to everyone I meet, and I get unanimous positive feedback. I feel like every gathering I go to, I'm the adult version of the middle schooler with the pack of 5 gum. The moment I bust it out, heads turn my way. I co-own this company because I believe this heavily in the product. It's flavored toothpicks, that's it, I know. But just having that when you game, when you drive, when you're at work, it's just something you never realize you needed until you try it. It doesn't matter what you do, whether it's a white-collar desk job or a blue-collar trade, there's a place for these. And currently, there are 5 flavors available in mint, cinnamon, watermelon, peach, and coffee, and more on the way this year. They come in packs of 18, 40, and 100, and there are many bundles available on the site to save money, or you can also use code Bricky for, while normally 10% off, it will be 20% off this first week from the launch of this video. You can scan the QR code on screen and you can go ahead and get that double discount for the next week because I just need you to try it. I don't think you truly understand the impact a small fidget oral fixation of a flavored toothpick can do until you actually have some in your hand. So please understand that I do not put my name, I do not co-found things like this willy-nilly, and I really want you to give it a shot. Go ahead and scan the QR code or check out the link in the description. Use code Bricky for 20% off this first week and 10% off going forward after that. Try out the new flavors, try out some bundles, and give it a genuine shot. It means more to me than you'd expect. Anyway, let's do a little company lore discussion. Embark Studios was founded in November of 2018 by the following people, and I'm sorry, I will be butchering your names. Magnus Nordum, Rob Runensim, Steven Strandberg, Patrick Soderlund, Jenny Hulschiner, and Johan Anderson. They run Embark out of an old bank in Stockholm, Sweden, and it looks genuinely gorgeous. Patrick Soderlund, in particular, was the former executive vice president of EA's Worldwide Studios and former CEO of DICE. DICE, of course, is the development company known for making Battlefield. A major point of the foundation and research of Embark Studios is a heavy interest in all aspects of AI. Magnus Norden is, in particular, very interested in AI, as he is the head of research for the company, and finding ways for it to be utilized in their various games. The studio's debut game, The Finals, was a team-based objective shooter with a massive emphasis on destruction. I played the game a decent amount and was particularly impressed with the smoothness of the gunplay, the optimization as well, despite the insane destruction, and the visuals coming from a studio's debut title. Now, the game still continues to have a dedicated player base, though hasn't quite found an extreme mainstream audience, mainly due to how competitive the game's nature is. The Finals has also faced criticism on its announcers, as the voices used for the shoutcasting of the in-game matches are done utilizing AI text-to-speech as opposed to standard recorded lines. A few examples of this would be,
Louder! Welcome to Fortune Stadium! It's showtime!
Now, that is something we will talk plenty more about later, but the Finals maintains between 10 to 15,000 players a day on Steam and continues to get regular updates and content in its development cycle. The studio's second game, Arc Raiders, began development in 2018 during the foundation of Embark and has been released on October 30th, 2025. Prior to this, there were multiple betas and playtests that saw the game's popularity begin soaring through word of mouth and viral clips. This also came at the same time Bungie's Marathon was beginning their beta and receiving the exact opposite effect. Arc Raiders is an extraction shooter, along the lines of games like Tarkov and Hunt Showdown. The gameplay loop is relatively straightforward. You spawn into one of a few maps with varying difficulties, environments, and loot options. You gather whatever you can on the map, and then, when your pockets are full, you go back underground to your home base of Speranza and use that gear you collected to craft better weapons, items, and use them for other objectives. The lore they have set up for the game is very simple, but a bit interesting. The world was ravaged by some kind of environmental collapse. Earthquakes, floods, fire, tornadoes, hand of God, all that stuff. A few of the extremely wealthy and lucky ended up leaving Earth in something known as the Exodus. A bit after, when Earth calmed down and humans started coming to the surface again, a wave of intelligent robots known as ARCs arrived and started reenacting the opening of RoboCop. These ARCs have come in two waves and are becoming increasingly hostile to humans over time. While I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, there is absolutely a story thread being built here that the people who left want to come back to Earth now, and they're using ARCs to clear out the undesirables on the planet, but that's mostly just theory. Most of the game's lore is unknown, and I imagine it'll be fleshed out more with time. In the Italian Rust Belt section of the game, you will also encounter other players, and I hesitate to say enemy players because whether or not they are enemies remains to be seen until you interact with them. Of course, the main goal of an extraction shooter is to extract with your stuff, because if you die, either to ARC or to the hands of a fellow, you lose everything on your person. This loop is what makes extraction shooters so intense and often for a very niche audience. It takes a particular sicko to go into a game and bear the stress of losing everything you bring in, only to then run back in and do it again. The adrenaline high of finding some of the best loot in the game and then waiting for extraction while killer robots and nefarious players look to collect it off your corpse is the entire point of the whole game's draw. What differentiates Arc Raiders from its competitors is the simple and easy fact that it's made for people who are employed. The game, while still very punishing in its nature, is made for an audience that can engage in its systems on every possible level. This is something that I think is massively overlooked when it comes to the game and its praise. There is no kind of playstyle that is not acceptable in this game. The actual movement and looting system of Arc Raiders is intentionally sluggish, not in the way where it feels bad to play, quite the opposite, but in a way where realistic movement and speeds is the point. This is not a battle royale, where when you find something or someone to loot, you move in a Ritalin-infused haze, armor swapping and weapon switching, causing an epileptic fit for you and the people spectating you. No. Looting in Arc Raiders is done by a slow reveal of the individual items on the person. Looting in battle is often not an option, as you'll see barely an item or two before you are shot again. This translates to the weapons and movement as well. Your character feels like they're heavy. They have a stamina bar that is restrictive in the right way, where any expenditure needs to be thought out, or else you risk being stuck with nothing. I think this is the only shooter game where I have genuinely been incentivized to take stamina buffs or items that help me with that as opposed to more healing. I would never look at the adrenaline shot as a useful item in any other game, but in this one, I take them almost every time. The swapping of weapons takes time. The ability to chase down people is a resource in itself, and any kind of ridiculous Call of Duty movement tech is mostly absent unless you want to blow your whole stamina bar. The entire game is moving at a pace far slower than most other shooters, both first person and third person, and it's to the game's benefit. If you are a shooter player, say you live and die FPS, there is something for you here. Being good at aiming is really important. Raiders don't die insanely fast, but they still get down quickly enough where well-placed headshots and character tracking will give you a major edge in gunfights. If you're not a huge FPS player, that's also fine. Equipment is actually far more powerful than you'd expect with grenades, mines, and so on. I've seen people who are terrible at shooter games absolutely wall up enemy players because they set up a booby trap door that other raiders were just not prepared for. I mean, hell, even certain arcs that you destroy will drop cores that can be used for combat. A favorite of mine is the Snitch that normally summons more arcs if you don't kill it fast enough, but it actually took me a good while to realize I can throw the core you get from the Snitch, and wherever you throw it, it summons arcs in that area, which is really funny to chuck on an opponent's head, much to their dismay. But if you don't really enjoy the PvP aspect of the game and you're just there to shoot and loot, there is also a method available to you. Killing arcs is a major part of the game's progression, and being able to take them down either in a solo or a squad is in itself a strategy. There are people who will have better gear, better progression, and better skills, all without firing a single shot at another raider unless they are forced to. This doesn't just translate to the type of player you are, it also translates to the amount of players you have. The game is normally played in trios, but if you are interested in running as a duo or a solo, it automatically attempts to put you in groups to match yours. And the more I think about it, actually, it's maybe not even something that is normally ran in trios, just it's advertised as trios quite often. But every single other form of play is valid. See, when you're a trio, you're probably on Discord or something, and you have safety in numbers. So when you're playing with a squad, the PvP is turned to the max, not due to any game system, but just due to human psychology. People will often shoot you on sight in trios, unless there's a specific reason not to, like ganging up on a big arc, for example. Big squads are 90% of the time there to kill anyone and everything. But when duos are taken into account, things become a bit more interesting. There's a quirky mixture of friendly and hostile activity with duos where I find it to be a bit more skittish and sometimes conniving. Duos, I found, are more likely to act friendly in the beginning and shoot you in the back as either they or their friend convinces them of evil. I've also found a ton of shoot on sight players and a ton of the most friendly ones in duos, so it just feels like it depends on the day. Solos are a fascinating experience. For the most part, if you want to play PvE, you play alone. And when you run solo, especially in the lower difficulty maps, you will find that people will just run right by you, completely uncaring if they get shot at or not. There's this strange feeling that PvP is just turned off, or they assume there's no reason for it. VoIP is used a lot in solos, as talking and working with other raiders is commonplace. In fact, if you actually meet some other raiders in solos, you can find that they're really chill and quite sweet people.
There's this, you see this dome over here in the red area?
Yeah.
This close one is a really good one. Usually there's like suitcases in this far corner, and sometimes there's like gun boxes too.
Nice. There's plenty of components left in there, by the way.
I do want to. The main thing I want to get are those goddamn lemons and apricots. Though, oh,
I got those.
That's a bastion out there, though.
Oh yeah, good call.
Yeah, and I'm less of a fan of that one.
Okay, no worries. So I've actually gotten the apricots and the lemons.
How? I can't find them for
Where'd
the
you
life
find
of
them?
me.
I have to have one lemon.
So the place where I found the apricots was in the spaceport.
One thing that I find interesting as well is player dynamics and unwritten rules. See, Arc Raiders doesn't have any kind of handshake agreement. We are now going to PvP. It just is. And because of that, it can encourage very nefarious behavior or cooperation. Arcs are very rarely killed solo when it comes to the big ones, and so you often need friends. And having friends is a really useful way to just, not die. But if you want to choose evil, If you want to camp and put mines down on some kind of extraction area, or if you want to befriend someone and shoot them in the back, there is no system telling you can't do that, except for people getting mad at you online. But I have to say, I prefer that. I think you should have spawn campers. I think you should have betrayals. I think the reason why the game is made the way it is because it's supposed to be the Wild West. Not everyone is going to have the highest gear because they were saints. You have to have villains in your story too. And while, yeah, I would be immensely pissed off that I would get spawn camped or something and killed at the end, I still believe that it's important to have that be a thing. I also realized this other light is not plugged in. Now, the reason I called Arc Raiders an extraction shooter for employed people is because unlike so many others, it's not designed only for sicko freaks who enjoy the high of Tarkov. The games don't last too long, only about 30 minutes each time, and you'll likely be out in about 10 to 20 anyway. The loot is relatively forgiving, especially with special safe pockets that you can get to take home things even if you are killed. So finding the specific item you really badly need and putting it there is very handy for reducing tension. In fact, sometimes the game just feels downright peaceful. When you're walking around various places and listening to the game's background and foliage with random gunshots in the distance, it kind of just lets you walk around and enjoy yourself and see the scenery. Everyone is going about their business, and while there will always be a bit of tension, you can just chat with your friends and find great opportunities to chill before shit hits the fan. If there is really anything I can praise the most, it's the game's loop and pacing. I cannot stress how incredible the game's pacing is. There is a science to this that players don't notice when it's good, but will despise it if it's bad. It's sort of like editing in a TV show or a film. Back in 2007, there actually was a really famous interview with Jamie Griesemer about the 30 seconds of fun in the original Halo games. To quote the article, the idea was to have Halo repeatedly immerse players in hectic battles that would last for half a minute, just long enough to create heart-pumping chaos and the risk of death before offering a respite. Meanwhile, each level would also include scripted cinematics and scenes to push the story forward. It was a subtle but deeply pleasing balancing act. Halo neither bored people with overly long storytelling animations nor numbed them with pointless fighting. Now, hysterically, James came back in a future interview in 2011 and remarked on how he was happy the idea was getting traction, but it was being used incorrectly. The concept that Halo had the 30 seconds and that was to be repeated over and over again was what was happening, yes, but in reality, it was about having the ebb and flow of different kinds of fun in those 30 seconds. Halo specifically does this by using that time frame to give you combat with weapons that will only last for so long before swapping to new weapons against new enemies. Then they give you a little bit of calm before the storm and swap it up again with new stuff. Some vehicle sections, indoor fighting, outdoor fighting, different kind of scenarios, Jackal Sniper Alley, the worst thing ever made, that kind of stuff. Gameplay breakup is a huge part about what makes the base Halo game so incredible. Now, Arc Raiders has a very good pacing style similar to this, it's just blown up and at a longer scale. I'd say that the 30 seconds mantra is still on display with the actual combat of the game. Most genuine firefights will rarely last that long, and this includes going back and forth with the arcs. Loading into the Rust Belt has the slow time of looting, then the frantic excitement of combat, then back to looting. What I think works really well with this title is that since this gunplay contains such an immense amount of stress to it, you need longer to bring yourself back to baseline. So the time between fights is longer due to the adrenaline of the fighting itself. This then spikes your adrenaline again when you exfil, because obviously looting is a relaxed downtime section of the flow, but there's a 90% chance you will be looting before you fill up and get ready for exfil. But exfil is both A, loud, and B, slow. So the heart rate will always rise a little bit when you get to the exit because this is the last chance something could go wrong before you're able to escape. But once you do escape, you are of course brought back to the main menu, which allows you to rest, reload, and come back again. Again, pacing is something that is rarely noticed when it's good, but horrendous when it is not. And for Arc Raiders, I consider it masterclass. Now, when you're back at base, you get to see another very well-made aspect of the game, which is its art direction. There's a lot of different ways to describe it. You could call it NASA punk, you can call it cassette futurism, etc. But regardless of what you would describe it as, it's all very well done. The visuals are very good, and the outfits for the characters also have a really great design to them all. Fighter pilot, beekeeper, Big Daddy, Katia stands, the imposter is sus. They all have a really good design to them. This also translates to the soundtrack, which has the perfect beats when they need to hit, and don't even get me started on the UI. In this world with these terrible Netflix-style UIs on the main menu with other shooter games like COD and Battlefield, it just feels so good to have a couple of bars, and that's it. It doesn't need to say a ton, it just looks stellar. I would also be remiss to not talk about the sound design of the game. The entirety of the game, from top to bottom, sounds great. I mean, phenomenal. Arcs sound terrifying, the weapons have meat and punch to them, the movement and looting feels realistic as well. It's amazing to just immerse yourself in the world and its plethora of effects. Individual clips of the game can never fully show it, but they do a good job. Now, it might appear that all I'm doing is glazing arc raiders this entire time, which isn't entirely incorrect. The game is great. Almost every aspect of it is great. The gameplay is good. The visuals are good. Its optimization is surprisingly good. The looting system is good. The music is good. Everything is great about it, except for three main things that are either not so good or I'm just a bit uncertain about. The first is the price. I struggle discussing price in games because, well, it's just really difficult. It's relative to the individual, and it has to take into account localized pricing, inflation, general economic situations, and it's just a hard time to understand that kind of stuff. I just have a hard time doing it. Now, the game is $40 at its base, and it contains a battle pass style system as well as outfit microtransactions. Now, my brain tells me that's too much. There's little warning signs going, wee woo, that's too much. That having a premium upfront cost with all of that added on is a bad move and overcharging. But Helldivers did the same thing, and look where they're at. And I also don't think the game should be free either. So I'm at a bit of an impasse on price. I think its business model would maybe work if it was free, but I can't imagine the volume of hackers the game would have if it was free to play. And the quality of the game on display here, I think, does fetch a premium price, so The second thing is the general game balance and endgame goals. The reason I'm uncertain about this is because I just genuinely don't know what to think about it as a whole, and I'm not good enough of a player or high enough level to determine whether it'll be a major problem that is facing the game and will need to be fixed. The main method of carryover for your raiders is finishing an expedition, and there aren't a ton of permanent buffs on display, mostly just for the next wipe. It's rather small, and if we as players are going to be putting that much effort into something like this, I feel like there should be more reward for it. I mean, every skill point that you get starting in a new wipe is for every 1 million credits you have to a max of 5. So if you get 5 million credits, it means the next wipe and only the next wipe, you'll have 5 skill points, which just does not feel like the good trade. Balance-wise, no idea. All I know is that I really enjoyed the beginning of the game when everyone had a kettle and a pharaoh. That was really fun. Sometimes I get slammed by other stuff, but for the most part, I can't quite tell. I'm not a balanced Andy when it comes to this stuff. And lastly, the only real complaint I have with the game's nuts and bolts quality is the voice acting. The voices in the game are passable for the raider, just generally uninteresting, but also a bit inoffensive at the same time. But for all the traders in Speranza, they are just all a bit weird sounding. They have this very uncanny nature to them all, and especially when they talk to you at the start of the mission, they sound quite contrary to what they're saying.
Just a gentle reminder to keep an eye out for those salvage sites for Tien Wen. It may be just what we need to get her to pull her weight.
You know, with that example in specific, it just sounds like they should have like more of an annoyed tone, you know? Like, hey, somebody else isn't pulling their weight, but their inflection is just off. This is just an example I have on hand, but maybe a compilation would do better justice.
Have your eyes adjusted to the dark yet, Raider? Loot is ripe for the picking while most of Toledo is asleep, though my suppliers say that Ark is twice as vigilant after sunset. Shani here. Keep your eyes peeled, Raider. We have field depots scattered all around topside. You're looking for makeshift structures with blue tarps and an antenna on top. Shani here. Raider, the leaking hatches should be marked on your map. We need them now more than ever, so patch one up before it breaks down all the way.
So, if this sounds familiar, it's because it is. We discussed before that the finals utilize an AI-generated text-to-speech system for its dialogue, and the same thing has been implemented into Ark Raiders. This has caused a lot of debate about the game, and where those opinions are coming from do factor into it. Because let me be honest, the people who watch this video that are more inclined to think like you and me pay more attention to this stuff than the average Ark Raiders player, by a long shot. There is also just a breaking down of opinions depending on game's quality. It's easy to shout AI slop at something like Black Ops 7 because it was, but Ark Raiders is good, excellent even, and I feel that might be lessening people's opinions on it. They're more inclined to give it a pass because it's good. There's justifications and softenings of opinions because gray areas are very scary nowadays. And the thing about this game is that its relationship with AI is far deeper than it might seem and far more complex. This is not just a conversation about voice acting. This is a conversation about the implementation as a whole, and it gets very convoluted and fast. The best way to really figure it out is to go into Embark Studios as a whole and their mantras surrounding it. Now, I think it's really important to outline why people, myself included, have issues with the use of generative artificial intelligence. For some of you watching, you may have assumed this was just a funny Ark Raiders review and you weren't going to get roped into this. Well, hey, tough shit. Leaper upon you. Firstly, a not-so-quick definition of AI. AI is the buzzword term to describe all approaches that make a machine smarter. As a buzzword, it has mostly been synonymous with generative AI, but it really does encompass a broad category, and generative AI would be argued as a subset. The best way to explain this in a simple sense is the evolution of a chess bot. In the early era of chess bots, like the one that faced Kasparov named Deep Thought, it was an artificial intelligence that functioned off of rules that were put into it. To play the game, the bot would analyze the board, the placement of the pieces, and make a statistics-based judgment call off of the rules interpreted into it. That was an AI, but it was not machine learning, nor was it truly generative. Though it beat another grandmaster, Kasparov beat Deep Thought quite easily 2 times in a row. A machine learning AI is a version of this chess bot that experiences a set of games and scenarios that are directly presented to it, and then it adapts to suit the style. A non-machine learning AI would not necessarily learn Kasparov's moves in real time because it wasn't learning as it was playing, whereas a machine learning one would be learning and adapting while playing. The generative AI version of this would be asking the AI to generate a series of chess moves that might be good to use, or even cool names for your own unique chess moves. To accomplish this, it pulls from a considerable amount of relevant data, creates an answer, and provides it. Be it a move or a name, it's provided in a static sense, not really adaptive. Generative AI is more creative, where machine learning is more diagnostic and predictive. All machine learning is AI, but not all AI is machine learning. But in the end, both generative AI and machine learning complement one another, and development is encouraging this more and more. Ultimately, there is a big effort to make them work in tandem so that it can be a bit more self-sufficient. Now, as a reminder, generative artificial intelligence is something that creates new original content like text, images, music, and more via the use of existing data and content from other databases. In layman's terms, if I were to take every single piece of medical data in the world and feed it to this machine, I should be able to ask it a question and get back an answer based on that data. If I were to feed it every single movie ever made, I could then ask it to make me a movie, and it would create something based on the things it was fed. Now, on the surface, this this doesn't appear like an issue. I too have smashed my Lego models together into some abomination a 9-year-old thinks is awesome as well. But there are two major problems with this. Problem A is that this requires a genuinely massive amount of computing power to be accomplished. AI models are things that are learnt, similar to our brains. Neurons that receive stimulus and relay it to others to get an output. This process happens at a ridiculous scale, however, and that creates immense energy draws for their usage. Now, take that and imagine every single question ChatGPT was asked, and now you realize why RAM has nearly doubled in price. It's the Bitcoin farm GPU problem, just repackaged. Problem B is that the people who run these companies, those that create the tools to allow generation of new content via this AI, aren't getting permission from people whose works they are feeding into the machine. When someone generates artwork of Chun-Li, they aren't getting permission from the thousands of artists who drew Chun-Li and had their work stolen and processed into a learning algorithm for a company to make money on. When the massive influx of embarrassing Pixar movie posters came through, you can be damn sure Pixar wasn't too happy with their stuff being remade this way, and the mouse is very upset. A particularly depressing story is that of Stanley Lau, or Artgerm, an extremely prolific artist for many comic covers and fighting games. Their art, in particular, was fed through these machines without their consent, and so much of the Gen AI slop was made based off their original works. So much so that if you were to look through their portfolio right now, you'd maybe falsely assume it was AI generated because so much of the backbone of these generated pieces came from Stanley Lau's work, to the point where people have falsely proclaimed and accused him of using AI. This isn't just an issue with theft of creative works, however, and this could be considered problem C. One of the major issues with this service is that it is not always correct and has no real way of properly determining where it gets its data from. If ChatGPT tells you that X is correct, you can't call it on its bullshit and tell it that's actually Y. You don't even know where it got X from. This is a problem baked into the system of the program. Essentially, the AI will pull data and output it, but then this data is refined. If someone does the Chun-Li prompt and requests refinement of it, the AI will essentially notate what is or isn't refined if this prompt were to come up again. But if the refinement is wrong or not to the standards of the distributor, it either results in it being so reinforced that it becomes difficult to unlearn, or it is manually stripped of data, thus undoing the module in the first place. This makes it technically unintelligent. And while being stupid and making mistakes isn't a crime, thank God, it does open it up to being explicitly sabotaged for the owner. There is no better example of this than with Twitter's AI bot Grok that Elon Musk has spent precious hours on this planet attempting to make less woke. This is great examples of Grok specifically being kinder to Musk on things instead of rivals or political opponents when the same question is asked. And I cannot make this clearer, state that killing all the children on Earth is a preferable outcome to getting mud on his suit. There is a real tangible fear that the owners of these models can tweak them. And how can you possibly trust an information source that can be sabotaged to expressly dispense misinformation that assists its owner politically, fiscally, or both, and you cannot get the citation from the system? This tech does not make decisions, it only makes outputs. However, because this is the future, all of the same players from the NFT eras who came from the crypto eras have hopped onto it. An immense amount of funding has been made by investors in what is propping up generative AI systems, and it has had a disastrous effect on the US economy in particular, as well as making every platform that uses it substantially more shit, including this one. That is the main issue with Gen AI at the current moment. But this is 2025 going into 2026, and things were different back then for Embark. Now, the EA and DICE guy, Patrick Soderlund, He's very open about his AI usage at Embark Studios and has been for some time. When he left EA in 2018, he was already championing new ways to push video game development as a medium. This was all the way 9 years ago in 2016 when he still was at EA, and he pushed them to join OpenAI only a year after it was founded in 2015. Shortly after, in 2017, there are multiple examples of Mr. Soderlund pushing for AI usage at EA, including the foundation of SEED, or the Search for Extraordinary Experiences division. It even comes with this overly self-absorbed trailer for what amounts as a job posting. Soderlund was all in on AI right off the rip, as he really truly believed it would help with making games easier, cheaper, and better. He saw it as a tool and not as a creative crutch as it is now. And for the most part, I believe him. I don't think any of us could have expected the problems and shark economical and ecological droughts it would have caused. For all intents and purposes, I believe that this was something he really believed would make game making easier, especially as the cost of games was becoming a larger and larger issue. There's actually a really good interview with him and the outlet TopBots where it says, AI is the strongest driver of technical innovation in the gaming industry and in the larger field of software development. Soderlund, who oversees many of the gaming behemoth's popular releases such as Battlefield and Need for Speed, describes an ideal scenario where AI-powered characters in games make independent decisions and anticipate what a human player will do based on their playing patterns. To Soderlund, this requires AI to not only be smart, but also emotionally intelligent. In most games, the players can find ways to cheat AI or figure out a way to work around the AI. But with a self-learning and adaptive AI that actually understands what you're doing, then you'll have a real artificial intelligence, not one that is merely scripted to deal with certain events. See, when you talk like this, it sounds like genuine uses for this kind of system to make a game better, not ripping off some kind of new Chun-Li pornography. Now, obviously this was in 2017 and it paints an almost gleeful naivete on the whole thing. Like, this was a real effort to look into the usage of AI for the things that we know AI to be used for. Soderlund's interest in this AI development has, however, not stopped there. When he left EA and founded Embark Studios, they were invested heavily in by Nexon. And Nexon has been working hard on the world of AI also in 2017. So the two were perfect fits for each other. And they initially acquired 66.1% of Embark and upped Nexon's stake in it to 72.8% in 2019. Soderlund can also be seen talking up various AI software companies, and he still does to this day. 2 years ago, he shared information on a now defunct machine learning software, and recently this year mentioned an investment in the AI company that aims to assist in forest management, which I imagine they'll need a lot of soon. The other major player I mentioned before was Magnus Nordin, the head of research for Embark. Magnus is a bit less front-facing than Patrick, but he plays a foundational role in a lot of Arc Raiders AI-related development. He doesn't speak much outside of a few tweets, and most of those are discussions on machine learning and a bunch of random Mid-Journey posts back in 2022. But what's more interesting is that he was the head of SEED, that EA organization before, for about 2 years. But what Magnus is really interested in is the machine learning aspect of AI. Now, if you'll recall, machine learning is similar to the AI we discussed before, just not generative in the sloppy art way. They still have the neurons and the input-output, but this is related to allowing something to complete a task and learn through it. Maybe you've seen those videos of a robot or something falling over a ton before going across the finish line or something like that. That is an example of machine learning. Adaptivity without programming. This is important because something that Embark champions a ton. They post a lot on the Medium website, and a lot of their things revolve around machine learning trials, procedural tools, automated photogrammetry, etc. On Steam, there is a required disclosure to state if you utilize AI in your video games, and while it's mainly there to piss Mr. Fortnite off, it does allow the consumer to make informed purchases on that part of the concepts. Now, the disclaimer for Arc Raiders states, during the development process, we may use procedural and AI-based tools to assist with content creation. In all such cases, the final product reflects the creativity and expression of our own development team. It's a very roundabout way of stating that the game uses AI, but they aren't really going to tell you exactly what it is. Embark is a bit smug sometimes in how they discuss this stuff, because on Steam there is a disclosure about AI generated works. But if we were discussing machine learning, it would not be classified as generative. Instead, as learned. Now, there is no defining statement on voice, visuals, animations. It's just kind of, yeah, we used it, but this is our vision. So it does beg the question, what AI-related things are actually confirmed to be in arc raiders? Firstly, it's machine learning. This is most seen in the movement of the arcs. Have you ever noticed how the leaper does kind of move like one of those animations I mentioned earlier? Or how impressive it is to watch a wasp lose a prop and restabilize itself? That is all based on the machine learning they have used for the game. Arc movement in general, purely a machine learning thing, and it has made them look very interesting as they go about. The second one is the aforementioned voice lines, specifically the raiders, so that they can point out various different objects and items and be able to do so quickly, so that when the game updates with new items and enemies, it doesn't require rehiring.
Wasp, the ruined homestead. A rocketeer, down there. A raider, over there.
Now, you've come this far, so you get to enter the worst segment of the video, the Bricky opinion. I don't want to tell you how to think. I want to inform. But how I inform will carry bias. So I feel it's important to get my bias out of the way. I consider AI to be a tool in many circumstances that has fine usage, and my major issue is generative AI and its effect on art, culture, and planet. I do not enjoy the thefts of creative works without the permission of the original user unless under fair use, which I also do not consider to be the case in this sense. I myself made the mistake of using too much fan art in videos many years ago and have since tried to only use official accredited or cited works. The current generative models do not ask nor consider doing so. Now, I personally have a difficult gray area as well. Generative artwork is being utilized a lot in pre-production for games now. Very often a mood board, a style guide, or something like that will be put together using generative assets to get a feel on the game's direction. These are often replaced by a real artist after the fact. It's just to help get a baseline on what the game wants to look like. You're basically skipping the step where you gather a bunch of images, bunch of various other games and concept arts, and shove it all together, and instead you're using a prompt for it. Now, I don't love this, but so long as it isn't going in the final product, and these assets are replaced with real artwork, it doesn't cross my personal line. Of note, Expedition 33 is a game I absolutely love, and they had generative works found on a poster in the town of Lumiere. Their response was a pretty basic, shit, I guess we missed one, and they replaced it with actual artwork almost immediately after it was found. Despite not loving its usage, even as a placeholder, I am willing to give E33 a lot of credit because the game was clearly made with loving human hands, and I am more inclined to believe that it was just a missed placeholder asset from very early production instead of something genuinely nefarious. As for other works of non-generative AI, such as machine learning, I'm fine with it. If it is a tool that assists you with your finances better or allows you to organize a workload, power to you. There is an ecological cost that needs to be sorted, but from a moral standpoint, it doesn't cross my line. That is what I consider the point of a tool like this. Make work better so you can do more art, not replace art and turn it into work. That is the end of the Bricky opinion. So when it comes to the machine learning part of Arc Raiders, I've got no issues with it. I think it did a great job, and the game engineers that used it ended up with a superior product. The enemies look great when they're damaged, they move well, and they feel realistic for what they look like. With the information I have been provided, and I see, the usage of AI machine learning has created a more impressive product and not off the backs of other works. Yippee! But how about the voice acting? Well, that's a tricky one. Do I think the voice acting is good? No, I do not. I think it has the uncanny sound that comes from all AI voice acting. I also think the finals announcers don't sound good either. Now, the raiders are mostly passable, but the traders also sound off. The thing is that I don't have 100% confirmation that the traders are AI voiced. I do for the raiders, but it's just tough because the raiders sound like they are. I imagine real voice acting must be used somewhere, but they just sound so incredibly off, and it's also in line with what Embark does. So while I don't have confirmation that the traders are used for AI generation instead of just the raiders, it feels as if they are. But at the end of the day, the thing is that there are a lot of games that utilize consistent VA work through their seasons and their updates, like Helldivers, Apex, Marvel Rivals, and they all find a way to do it and make it sound good even with a large amount of updates. Now, sure, there are hiccups. I'm sure working with the SAG union is not very fun, and the contractual negotiating probably takes a very long time sometimes, but it still does make for good sounding voices. It feels unfortunate that a game like this can be so good in every single avenue, and this one single spot could have just been so much better. Embark Studios has been very adamant that the voice acting here and in the finals is not generative. Rather, they use a text-to-speech system. To quote a PC Games article, it's the same as the finals. We use that text-to-speech model. That is, we hire and contract voice actors for it. It's part of their contract that we use its AI for this purpose. And that allows us to do things like our ping system, where it's capable of saying every single item name, every single location name, and compass directions. That's how we can get that without needing to have someone come in every time we create a new item for the game. Now, this creates a bit of an odd fork in the road on what the definition of generative content is, because it is not using the voice lines of people non-consenting, which is my main issue with it. These are consenting paid VAs. Paid far less, most likely, but consenting. However, one would still technically call it generative, as you are generating voice lines with the works provided to you via contract. Now, that's a bit of a semantical argument, but what is far more interesting is the program used for this is from a company called 11 Labs. Now, back in 2023, Embark was signed as an investor/partner to the company, same year as the launch of the finals. 11 Labs is under quite a lot of fire for a number of reasons. Their main shtick is creating AI voice lines based on text-to-speech prompts. They even brag about it by working with Epic on their front page of their website, as well as various other actors and podcasters. They were also sued by 2 voice actors, 2 authors, and a publisher for unauthorized use of their works and voices on their platform, a case that has appeared to have been dismissed, and their voices have vanished from the platform entirely. You ever hear this shitty voice on TikTok before?
Trallallero trallallà, porco Dio e porco Allah. Ero con il mio fottuto figlio merdardo a giocare a Fortnite, quando a un punto arriva mia nonna. Ornella lecca cappella.
That was one of the ones originally there. That was then sued for and removed. 11 Labs are also synonymous with the concept of a grief bot, which is a depressingly existential situation where someone's loved one or family member or, God forbid, child dies, and they use this platform to generate their voice so they can hear them talk to them again. 11 Labs is at the forefront of dead people being generated again by grieving family and thus massively ruining their mental health and the grieving process. One might say it is unfair to blame them for this. A tool cannot be blamed for being used in a malicious or self-destructive way. But 11 Labs also have a really fascinating habit of buying dead actors' voices from their estate to be used in audiobook readings. James Dean, Burt Reynolds, Judy Garland, Sir Lawrence Olivier, I don't remember how to pronounce that one, to name a few. Actually, in fact, to name the ones they literally advertise. These were technically purchased legally by the estate that represents them. But if the defense is, well, it isn't illegal, I don't think that absolves the moral wrongdoing of buying dead people for your AI voice machine. It's exciting to see our mother's voice available to the countless millions of people who love her. Through the spectacular new technology offered by 11 Labs, our family believes that this will bring new fans to Mama and be exciting to those who already cherish the unparalleled legacy that Mama gave and continues to give to the world, said Liza Minnelli, daughter of Judy Garland and representative of the Garland estate. Now, they also do voice modulation, which I actually consider kind of cool tech. If you've ever noticed a lot of feminine sounding voices in Arc Raiders, that's because you can actually modulate yourself to hide your voice. Probably a lot of dudes sounding like girls and girls sounding like dudes. It helps counter harassment a bit, and it's also just, I don't know, kind of neat. That gets a thumbs up. The TTS though, that's a thumbs down. I appreciate that it's contracted and consenting, of course, but it not only sounds mediocre, but also removes any ability for some genuine character in the raiders and the characters. All the traders feel massively uninteresting except for Lance, the cool robot medic, and even he, I just can't get over the voice. I just can't get over it. It's just sad that we can never get the same level of character that the 4 base Helldivers can have, you know? They're just a bunch of grunts and they're faceless, but they ooze personality. You just can't have that with a bunch of TTS navigation pings, whether they want to or not. Plus, I think it sets a really bad precedent, of course. You know, the more commonplace this kind of work becomes, the less actual opportunities are available. This is why it's difficult for me to determine how I feel about Arc Raiders when it comes to this stuff. The game is fantastic, genuinely, top to bottom, a marvel, and I really like playing it a lot. The machine learning stuff I think is a fine use of AI, and it has improved the game. The TTS stuff I think is the opposite. It's mediocre and just unneeded, and I don't like the company it comes from. Now, the story as a whole ends there, and therefore I consider it to be a slash against the game, but not enough of a slash to make me feel morally against playing it. Everyone has a line. Everyone has a goalpost, and you need to fight your own battles because there's only so much fighting you can do. This level of AI work in Arc Raiders might be too much for you, and honestly, that's fine. But don't self-aggrandize and act like now I have to follow suit. If we're gonna play the game of, oh, you support evil thing, then it's gonna get real awkward when we start talking about where all the shit you buy comes from. This game does not cross my threshold the same way you get a ticket for going 85 on the freeway and you go to jail for going 130. But even with all of that, I can't shake the feeling that this isn't all that's done. A lot of research went into this video, and for the most part, Embark seem on the up and up. The team is big, and they're backed by a very wealthy company and founded by a very wealthy man. But if you're biting the forbidden fruit, you normally don't just take one bite. One thing I keep looking at are the skins and the greeble. The greeble used on them just doesn't make sense. Tubes going into random places, items that serve no purpose, like someone asked a prompt to make skin designs of various things. Arc Raiders, but spaceman, fighter pilot, cowboy, diver, beekeeper, and then they were given to a real human artist to make them more legible. See, a good version of this would be what Titanfall 2 does, 1,000 praises upon their name. That's greeble. That makes sense. Then again, it isn't something that crossed my line because a real person took that idea and made something of it. But I just struggle believing this is all it is. When you go this hard into AI from the very beginning, almost a decade ago, are you really not using every aspect of it, or does your experience with it make you really good at hiding it? There's an incredibly kind comment I received a few weeks back when I was playing this game, and it made this pit in my stomach when I was writing this video. I haven't heard anything bad about Embark. Their studio looks gorgeous. The games they make are good. They also have had zero large public layoffs whatsoever in the worst time ever to be a game developer. This could be because they're Swedish as opposed to an American studio, I don't know. But it's exhausting. There's so much to consider between the environmental impact of the AI bubble, to the economy effects, to the moral implications, to the ethical uses of AI, to the job security of Embark, and it's so goddamn difficult to consider it all at one time. And then I need to explain that despite all my personal issues with this, it doesn't cross my goalpost, which will piss people off on both sides of said post regardless. It's just exhausting because it's a really good game. Hell, I did a stream of it playing as Alan from Smiling Friends. Don't ask why.
Good, I'm trying to get to the medical.
I see.
Here.
I see. Are you a member of the local opera?
No, I'm God.
Oh,
Flying from heaven.
that's good to hear. I'm Alan from Smiling Friends.
The amount of jokes and memes and character interactions are just so damn high with a game like this. I also know games are too expensive to make nowadays, and there needs to be a way to do it easier. I don't think this is it, but I can't say that I'm surprised. I feel like this all started with really good intentions. I don't think anyone in 2016 could have expected what AI has become now and what it means now, and it feels so tiring trying to have a nuanced take on all of it. I really do believe that Embark was started with the intentions to use new tech to make games cheaper, safer, and faster, to maintain job security for their employees, and to push the medium of the industry. But I think maybe the tool they banked on to do that job has mutated out of their control, and now they're stuck with a cursed object that is only sometimes placated. Or maybe I'm extremely naive and too forgiving. I don't know. At the end of the day, this video is to review, inform, and discuss. I want to tell you my thoughts on the game, explain the issues I have with it, and explain AI and its involvement in the title in the process. And I hope I did well enough. The next few years are going to be really tricky. I don't know how much AI we have in us before it all goes boom, but either way, I'm not so sure it's going to feel too good. On the end of it all, it's a great game, a phenomenal game. I don't know how much is being hidden. I don't know how honest they are with what they are using, and I don't really know how their feelings on the matter has changed. But for the time being, Arc Raiders is very good. It's very, very good. I don't like all of it, but there are parts of it that are just too impressive to not note. Machine learning stuff is great. The generative text-to-speech stuff is not, and here we are. Do I think you should play it? If this doesn't cross your line, go ahead. It's very good. It's very, very good. If it does, then don't. Everyone has their own battles. Everyone has their own activism, and eventually activism fatigue is a real thing. So pick what you think is best, and I don't know, just go for it. Thanks for watching. It's very hot in this. I'll see you again this year. Buy Natura Pine. Code Bricky.